The late October sun hung low over Nockamixon State Park, stretched thin and amber across the surface of the lake, as if the day itself was quietly giving up its last warmth. The trees stood motionless in the cooling air, their leaves brittle and fading, barely holding on to the branches that carried them. Every sound felt softened by distance, wind moving through dry branches, water touching the shore, birds calling once before falling quiet again. It was the kind of stillness people trusted without ever questioning it, the kind that convinces you nothing here can change. 18-year-old Jason Kutt sat near the water with his girlfriend, close enough to feel the steady pulse of the lake against the sand. They talked the way people talk when they still believe in distance between themselves and danger. About plans that hadn't been written yet, about music, about what the next year might hold. At 18, time doesn't feel fragile. It feels like something that expands, something that waits. The sun drifted lower, flattening itself against the horizon. The lake caught it and fractured it into gold across the surface, light breaking and reforming with every small ripple. For a moment, everything was still enough to feel permanent. Then, somewhere beyond the water, higher up the slope, a figure stood behind a gate along the edge of the park, motionless at first, watching. The kind of stillness that doesn't belong to the landscape, but sits inside it like something placed there on purpose. There was distance between where Jason sat and where that figure stood, far enough that intention could hide inside uncertainty, far enough that a mistake could be claimed later. For a moment, nothing moved. The lake kept its rhythm. The wind kept its pattern. The world did not warn what was coming. Then the sound came, not gradual, not distant, not uncertain. A gunshot cracked through the entire park at once. The echo carried farther than the shot itself, rolling over the lake, folding into the trees, refusing to disappear quickly. Birds burst upward in a violent scatter of wings. The figure did not move immediately. There was only a pause, brief, suspended, before turning away from the gate, stepping back into the tree line, as if returning to something already decided. No rush, no visible urgency, just disappearance into the landscape that had moments ago held them in plain sight. Down by the water, the calm had already been destroyed. Jason's body fell forward into the sand as everything familiar collapsed into confusion and sound. The shoreline that had once felt safe now felt exposed, like it had never offered any protection at all. As the echo finally faded across the lake, what remained was not just silence, but the absence of explanation. A moment that shouldn't have happened in a place like this. A decision made at a distance that turned certainty into tragedy. And a figure already gone before anyone could understand what they had just seen. The lake kept moving anyway. The sun kept falling. And the story was only beginning. You're listening to Departed in Pennsyltucky, The Last Sunset, The Case of Jason Kutt. Chapter 1, The Golden Hour. Lake Nockamixon has always been the kind of place people went to disappear. Not in any dramatic sense, but in the quiet way the world sometimes allows. Tucked into the rolling hills of Bucks County, it spread out in long, calm reaches of water. Its shoreline folded into forest that changed with every season. In spring, everything softened into green. In summer, the trees thickened and held the heat. By autumn, the hills burned golden rust, reflected back into the lake like a second sky. Along its edges, trails wound through the trees and opened unexpectedly into small inlets, rocky overlooks, and weathered docks that seemed built more for reflection than arrival. Even sound behaved differently here. The soft lap of water against stone, the rustle of wind through the trees, the distant call of birds moving overhead, all of it settled into something steady, something almost sacred in its simplicity. People came to Lake Nockamixon to fish from shore or boat, to hike or bike the wooded paths, to sit with family at picnic tables worn smooth by time, or simply to watch the water shift with delight. It was a place for slowing down, for breathing, for letting the noise of everything else fall away. On Saturday, October 24th, 2020, that quiet held the same way it always had, at least at first. It was the final day of the season for certain types of hunting in Pennsylvania, including the use of muzzleloaders for deer, bear, and other game. Inside Nockamixon State Park, licensed hunters were permitted to hunt, as long as they followed posted rules and stayed within designated areas. It was a day that carried a particular stillness of its own, the kind that comes when people move carefully through the same landscape for entirely different reasons. Jason Kutt belonged in places like this. He was 18, from Sellersville, Pennsylvania, and had recently graduated from both Penn Ridge High School and Upper Bucks County Technical School, where he studied graphics. Jason balanced work with long-term goals and the quiet discipline of saving for what came next. His life was just beginning to take shape, as young lives do, full of direction and possibility. He worked steady hours as a groundsman for Savage Tree Service, saving money, making plans, looking ahead. The Air Force was next. He intended to enlist in 2021, following a path that connected him to his grandfather and something larger than himself. Music was part of him too. He played guitar with the kind of ease that didn't ask for attention. He liked being outdoors, fishing, riding four-wheelers, exploring back roads, and he carried himself with a calmness that made people feel at ease around him. He wasn't drawn to trouble. He wasn't chasing risk. His life at that point was still open in every direction. His family knew him as dependable. His friends knew him as easygoing, quick to laugh, slow to anger. He came from a hunting family, but it wasn't something he personally pursued. He preferred fishing lines to rifles, open water to tree stands, long evenings at Lake Nockamixon to the structured rhythm of the hunt. It was simply where he felt most himself, unhurried, unpressured, present. To his parents, Dana and Ronald, he was their youngest child, the one who still filled the house with noise and light, even when it was quiet. The one who made ordinary days feel less ordinary just by being in them. No conflicts were trailing behind him, no visible fractures in his life, no warning signs pointing to anything dark. And so, on that Saturday afternoon, October 24th, 2020, during the golden hour, Jason sat with his girlfriend on a sandy overlook above the water. The lake stretched out before them like glass catching fire. The sun was low now, dragging long bands of orange and red across the surface. The light softened everything it touched. It was the kind of moment people don't think to hold on to until later, when it's already gone. For a while, there was nothing but that: wind, water, light, and time slowing itself down. And then, without warning, it ended. The sound came first, sharp, final. It didn't belong to the landscape. It tore through it. Jason collapsed forward, struck from behind. The stillness shattered instantly. His girlfriend reached for her phone, her hands unsteady, her breathing breaking into panic as she tried to force words into order. Help. Call. Something. Anything. Nothing around them made sense anymore. When she looked up, searching for anything that could explain what had torn her world apart, she saw him. A man wearing an orange hunting vest, standing far down the path. For a moment, everything seemed to narrow down to that single figure, still against the fading light, distant but unmistakably present. He didn't run towards them. He didn't call out. He didn't hesitate either. He simply turned and walked away into the trees, disappearing piece by piece into the golden shadow of the evening. Behind him, the golden hour kept going, as if nothing had happened at all.
911, what's your emergency?
Chapter 2: When the light began to fade. The silence after the shot didn't last. It couldn't. It shattered almost instantly into movement. Hands searching, breath breaking. A mind trying to understand something it was not built to understand. On the overlook above Lake Nockamixon, Jason's girlfriend reached for her phone. Her fingers didn't cooperate at first. Everything felt too fast and too slow at the same time, as if the moment had split away from normal time entirely. She managed to unlock the screen. She called 911. What followed was not a calm report, but a collapse into urgency. Her voice came apart as she tried to explain what had just happened, how they had been sitting together moments earlier, how a gunshot had cut through the air without warning, how Jason had fallen over and wasn't getting up. Words blurred into each other. Location details came in fragments, interrupted by shock and disbelief. Behind her, the lake still moved the same way it always had. The water didn't change. The trees didn't react. The world around her remained intact in a way she no longer could. Dispatch worked to pull clarity from the chaos. Emergency units were sent towards the park. But even as the call continued, something irreversible had already taken shape in the minutes between the shot and the phone. Time was no longer on their side. By the time help reached the overlook, the urgency of the call had already transformed into something heavier, something final. Within minutes, the quiet of Lake Nockamixon State Park began to unravel. Sirens cut through the stillness. Police units, game wardens, and park rangers converged onto the entrance, tires crunching against the gravel, doors slamming as they ran towards the shoreline. Above them, a Pennsylvania State Police helicopter dropped into the sky, its blades pounding the air in heavy, rhythmic bursts. What had been quiet only minutes before was now in motion. Noise, urgency. They found Jason where he had fallen, barely conscious, unresponsive. A single gunshot wound had done catastrophic damage. There was no time to hesitate. Paramedics moved with practiced precision, their voices sharp, controlled, cutting through the chaos as they worked to stabilize Jason. Hands moved quickly. Equipment snapped into place. There is a kind of silence that exists inside emergencies, not the absence of sound, but the narrowing of it. Everything becomes focused, immediate, critical. That was the silence they worked in. Within minutes, Jason was lifted from the ground and rushed to the waiting helicopter. The door slammed shut. And just like that, he was gone from the place where everything had changed, carried into the darkening sky towards St. Luke's University Hospital, where doctors were already preparing for what was coming. And then, almost as quickly as it had erupted, the noise began to fall away. The sirens moved off. The helicopter vanished. The woods settled. But the silence that returned was not the same. Search teams moved in immediately. K-9 units were deployed, noses low to the ground, tracking what scent they could through leaves and dirt. Officers spread out along the trails, pushing deeper into the tree line, scanning every break into the brush, every path leading away from the scene. Above them, aerial units continued to circle, searching from a perspective the ground could not provide. Roads were checked, access points monitored, Every possible exit was considered, because whoever had fired that shot had been there, and then somehow had left. Investigators worked outward from the only fixed point they had, the location of Jason Kutt, the direction of the shot, the account of Jason's girlfriend, who had seen it all. A man in hunting gear, standing at a distance, then walking away, not running, not hiding, just gone. But the woods gave nothing back. No suspect, no weapon, no immediate explanation, only space, only distance, and the echo of that single shot, replaying in the minds of everyone who had heard it. Because somewhere beyond those trees, beyond the reach of the search teams and the sweep of the helicopter, was the person who knew exactly what happened. And for that moment, they were the only ones. Chapter 3: The Long Dusk. As Jason fought for his life, the world outside his hospital room kept moving, but it moved differently, as if everything had been slowed and stretched by what had happened at the lake. What began as a single gunshot on a quiet October evening had already grown into something larger, something heavier, and it was now pulling in investigators, officials, and an entire community searching for answers that did not yet exist. At a press conference, Bucks County DA Matthew Weintraub stood before a line of cameras and spoke with careful precision. He did not describe a targeted attack. There was no evidence of a motive, no connection between Jason and whoever had fired the shot. Instead, the facts pointed towards something far more unsettling, a possibility that this had been a mistake, a misidentification, a moment where assumption replaced certainty. But even framed that way, it did not lessen the weight of what happened. Matthew Weintraub addressed the unknown shooter directly, not with accusation, but with urgency. If this had been an accident, there would still have been time to do something different from what had already been done. A young man was fighting for his life. His family was gathered around him, waiting, hoping, trying to make sense of something that did not. Jason's family deserved an explanation, because nothing in Jason's life suggested he should be a part of a case like this. There was no hidden conflict, no unresolved tension, just a future that had been moving forward until it wasn't. Inside St. Luke's University Hospital, that future narrowed into a single room filled with controlled light and the steady rhythm of machines. Doctors worked with focused urgency, responding to a catastrophic gunshot wound that had left little margin for recovery. Every movement was deliberate, adjustments, readings, quiet exchanges between staff that carried more meaning than they said out loud. Jason's family stayed close, holding on to whatever hope they could find in the smallest changes, the smallest words. Time stretched in that space. Minutes became long, indistinct intervals, marked only by the monitor's sound and the quiet anticipation of what might come next. For 2 days they waited, and then the waiting ended. Jason Kutt was pronounced dead. The loss did not arrive as a single moment. It spread outward, settling into everything it touched, into the room, into the people standing in it, into the community that was only beginning to understand what had been taken. Jason had been 18, just beginning to build a life that now existed only in memory and in the plans that would never unfold. Outside the hospital, that grief found another form. A fundraiser was created to help Jason's family cover funeral expenses, an immediate, practical reality that followed a loss no one had been prepared for. The response came quickly and without hesitation. Donations appeared from friends, classmates, neighbors, and strangers, people who had never met Jason, but understood, in a very human way, the weight of losing someone so young, so suddenly. Messages filled the page, not formal or distant. The community, in its own way, was trying to close a gap that could have not been closed. For investigators, Jason's death marked a turning point that changed everything. This was no longer an incident under review. It was a homicide investigation. Detectives returned to Lake Nockamixon State Park with that understanding guiding every step. The scene had already been processed, but now it had to be fully reconstructed, not just documented, but understood in a way that could explain how a single shot had crossed such a distance and ended a life. They walked the terrain again, tracing the line from where Jason had been sitting to the elevated position near the old Ridge Road gate. Measurements were taken and confirmed. Sightlines were tested. What had once been an open, quiet landscape became a series of calculated points. The distance held steady, roughly 500 to 550 feet. That number carried weight. At that range, a hunter is expected to positively identify a target before firing. Not estimate. Do not assume. Identify. The margin for error at that distance is not supposed to include a person sitting at the edge of a lake. That fact settled into the center of the investigation. But physical evidence alone could not identify the person behind the rifle. So investigators turned to movement. Who had been in the park during that narrow window of time when the shot was fired? Vehicles seen entering or leaving. Cars parked along the road. Small observations that, when placed together, began to form a pattern. 3 vehicles appeared repeatedly in those accounts. A silver Toyota sedan, a champagne-colored Chevy Blazer, likely from the early 2000s, and finally, a black Mercedes SUV. They were not immediately suspects, but they were present. And presence matters in a case like this. Detectives began the slow process of identifying each one. License plate databases were searched. Traffic and security cameras from surrounding roads were reviewed. Tips from the public were logged, compared, and followed up on. It was not fast work. It required patience, verification, and the willingness to follow leads that might not go anywhere. Within days, the Toyota sedan was identified and its driver accounted for. One piece of the timeline was secured, but the other two vehicles remained unidentified. Still tied to the moment everything changed. And at the center of the case was the only person who had witnessed the shooting itself, Jason's girlfriend. Her description did not shift with time. She heard the gunshot, sharp, sudden, unmistakable. She saw Jason fall. And in the distance, she saw a man in hunting gear standing near the road, looking in their direction. He did not react in a way that suggested confusion. He did not move towards them. He turned, and he walked away. That detail became one of the most important pieces of the investigation because it suggested awareness. Whoever had fired the shot knew it had landed and chose to leave without offering help, without reporting what happened, without acknowledging it at all. As the days passed, the investigation continued to expand outward, then almost gradually began to narrow. The break did not come from technology or forensic analysis. It came from a person who saw the news coverage, recognized something familiar in the details, and made a connection. That information was passed to investigators. From there, the pieces began to align more quickly. A name entered the investigation. With it came a vehicle, one that matched the description witnesses had provided. A champagne-colored Chevy Blazer, seen leaving the park at the time, that now mattered most. That connection did not answer every question, but it changed the nature of the search. What had once been wide and uncertain began to focus. The randomness that had defined the early days of the case started to fall away. And the question that had echoed since the first shot broke the silence of the lake. Who had been standing behind that gate? Was no longer drifting without direction. It was moving steadily toward an answer. The light had faded on the day Jason Kutt was shot. But in the days that followed, something else began to emerge from the darkness. No resolution, not yet, but the beginning of truth. Chapter 4: What the Light Revealed. Detectives didn't rush it. They couldn't afford to. Every step had to be deliberate. Every assumption challenged. What began as scattered fragments, vehicle sightings, timelines that didn't quite line up, half-formed witness accounts were slowly drawn together, tightened, refined. Piece by piece, the shape of that October evening began to emerge from the noise. One of those pieces led to a vehicle, a matched one seen leaving the park. From there, the focus narrowed. Then came the interviews. Workers from a local company described a shift that was hard to ignore. Their fellow employee hadn't shown up for work immediately after the shooting. When he returned, something was different. Not dramatic, not obvious to a stranger, but enough. Enough to stand out, enough to stay with people. And then there was what came next. It started quietly, almost casually. He began giving things away. Firearms, ammunition, hunting gear. Not sold, not stored, removed. It wasn't random. It was deliberate. That was the moment the investigation began to harden. What had once been a possibility started to look like a direction. Detectives retraced everything: movements, timelines, distances, working backward through the day until the gaps began to close. The further they went, the less room there was for coincidence. By early December, they had enough. They were no longer circling possibilities. They were closing in on something solid. Before the warrants were ever signed, the outline of the case had already begun to resolve. A man wearing an orange hunting vest. A vehicle seen leaving the park. A shot fired from a distance that did not allow for mistakes. Piece by piece, the fragments stopped feeling abstract. And then finally, the name. Kenneth Troy Heller, 52 years old. The moment his name entered the file, it stopped being a case built from fragments and became something anchored to a person. Not a silhouette, not a description. A man with a life that existed outside the investigation. Lived in Warminster, Pennsylvania, moving through a quiet, unremarkable routine, a steady job, familiar patterns, days that blended into one another without drawing attention. He was not new to Bucks County's landscape, the seasonal shifts, the presence of hunters in the fall, the shared use of land like Lake Nockamixon. Firearms were part of that environment, as was the understanding of when and how they were used. Nothing in his life suggested he would become the center of a homicide investigation. No known history with Jason Kutt. No known documented conflict. No connection at all. Their lives had never intersected until they did. Not through choice, not through proximity, but through a single decision made in seconds. Only after that name was entered into the record did the warrants follow. They were signed without hesitation. The search that followed did not feel like a discovery. It felt like a confirmation. Inside his home and vehicle, investigators found what they had already begun to assemble in theory: a rifle, bullets consistent with the round recovered, an orange hunting vest bearing licensing information, metal knuckles modified with a blade. Individually, they were objects. Together, they were structured. A pattern no longer open to interpretation. The case was no longer moving toward an answer. It had arrived at once. Confrontation came December 29th, 2020. It did not begin in an interrogation room. It began with an arrival. Kenneth Troy Heller came to the police station with an attorney. There was no urgency in the movement, no visible resistance, only the quiet compression of everything that had happened between October and December. Inside, detectives were waiting. No theatrics, no escalation, just the case, laid out in full. Timeline, vehicle movement, distance, weapon recovery, witness accounts. Each piece placed down did not introduce new information so much as remove remaining uncertainty. The Chevy Blazer leaving the park, the rifle recovered, the measured distance of 550 feet from the yellow gate to the shoreline. Nothing stood alone anymore. Everything reinforced everything else. Across the table, Kenneth Troy Heller listened. His attorney remained still. Kenneth Troy Heller acknowledged being at the location on October 24th, 2020, just after 5 p.m., near the Yellow Gate, along Old Ridge Road, rifle in hand. From approximately 550 feet away, he said he believed he was aiming at small game. He fired once. The shot traveled farther than the intended target could follow. It struck Jason Kutt. And in that instant, the distance between belief and consequence collapsed entirely. What mattered next was not only what happened, it was what did not. No call for help. No attempt to intervene. No warning to others nearby. No pause that changed direction. Kenneth Troy Heller turned and walked away. Only later, after the investigation, after the warrants, after the confrontation, did the legal reality settle into form. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus Kenneth Troy Heller. The charges were read without emotion. Criminal homicide, recklessly endangering another person, possessing an instrument of crime. No mention of the weather. No mention of light. No mention of the overlook where it happened. Only action. Only outcome. Only consequence. A weapon was discharged without certainty. A target never confirmed. A life ended in seconds. And when everything else was stripped away, explanation, context, distance, the record still held. Not everything it could have said, but everything it needed to. Chapter 5. The Last Light. Time moved differently after the shooting. Days turned into weeks, then months, but nothing truly softened. The lake returned to stillness. The season shifted. But what had happened on that October evening did not fade. It settled. And eventually, it followed everyone into a courtroom. June 7th, 2021. The date arrived without spectacle, but carried weight all the same. Inside the courtroom, the air felt still in a different way than the lake had. Tighter, heavier, filled with something unspoken that pressed into every corner of the room. At the front of the room, Kenneth Troy Heller stood before the judge, not hidden by distance now, not obscured by trees, water, or uncertainty, just a man in clear view, where every action, every decision had led him. There were no revelations left, no mystery to unravel. The investigation had already done that work. What remained was acknowledgement. When Kenneth Troy Heller spoke, it wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. He entered an open guilty plea. In that moment, everything that had been once pieced together through evidence, timelines, and distance became fixed. The shot had been fired. A life had been taken. And afterward, nothing had been done to stop what followed. The courtroom absorbed it quietly. There is a difference between knowing something and hearing it said out loud. This was the second kind. The charges carried weight: involuntary manslaughter, reckless endangerment, possession of an instrument of crime, possession of a prohibited weapon, and violations of hunting laws. Each one tied not just to the act itself, but to the decisions surrounding it, the distance, the misjudgment, and the silence that came after. Then, the courtroom shifted, because the case was no longer just about what happened. It became about what was lost. Jason's family stood, one by one, not to argue facts, not to change the outcome, but to give shape to something the law could never fully hold. His father, Ron Kutt, spoke about the future that had been taken, not in abstract terms, but in the small specific moments that make up a life. The plans Jason had already made, the path he had already chosen, the milestones that would never come. Not just losing a son, but losing everything that son was going to become. His words carried something heavier than anger. They carried finality. His mother, Dana Kutt, followed. She spoke not only about their family, but about the reach of the loss, the way it had moved beyond their home and into the community, how a single moment had rippled outward. touching people who had never met Jason, yet still felt the weight of what had happened. This wasn't contained grief. It spread. It stayed. And underneath everything they said was a truth that didn't need to be repeated to be understood. This did not have to happen. What filled the courtroom in that moment was an outrage. It was an absence. The space where a life should have continued. The version of the future that no longer existed. Even the judge, bound by the law's structure, could not ignore that weight. When the judge spoke, his reasoning was steady, deliberate. He pointed to the distance, more than 500 feet, the failure to properly identify a target, the recklessness of firing into uncertainty, and then what came after. The choice to leave, the choice to say nothing, the choice to let others find the aftermath. Those choices mattered. They always did. The sentence? 7 to 20 years in a state prison, the maximum allowed. A punishment meant to reflect not just the shot, but the decisions surrounding it. And still, even as the words settled into the room, nothing felt resolved. No sense of balance restored. No moment of closure. Because nothing could return what had been taken. The justice system had done what it was built to do. It had reached a conclusion. It had an assigned consequence. But beyond the walls of that courtroom, something remained untouched by all of it. A life that should have continued. A future that should have unfolded. And a single moment, one decision, one shot, that could never be undone. Epilogue. After the sunset. Months later, spring returned to Lake Nockamixon, as if nothing had happened. The same water moved through the same quiet bends of the shoreline. The same light returned, spilling gold across the surface in the evenings. The same sunsets painted the sky in slow-burning color, fading gently into the night. To the outside world, it looked unchanged. The park carried on as it always had. Families walking the trails, anglers sitting along the banks, boats drifting across the open water. The seasons did what seasons do. But the place was no longer the same. On the bank, not far from where everything had changed, Jason's father sat on a bench he had built with his own hands. It faced the water, positioned with intention, toward the exact stretch of lake where Jason had last been alive, toward the place where a single moment had divided life into before and after. The bench sits close to the water's edge, positioned so precisely it feels intentional in every way, facing the stretch of lake where the sunset once broke across the surface. The night, everything changed. It is simple at first glance, but every detail carries weight once you notice it. The wood is painted a deep green, deliberately chosen for Jason's girlfriend, a color meant to hold memory rather than to serve as decoration. Across the backrest, His name is carved into the wood, framed by wings that rise outward as if lifting him into something beyond the lake itself. Beneath it, the dates mark the short span of his life, quiet and unadorned. At the center, worked into the design, is the shape of a guitar. Music wasn't something he admired from a distance. It was something he had lived inside of. Jason had been 18, standing at the threshold of everything he was about to become. He had real plans, solid ones, already in motion. He was preparing to join the Air Force after the holidays, stepping into a future that now existed only in the minds of the people who loved him. That is what lingers now, not just the loss itself, but the absence of everything that would have come next. The unfinished life, the unopened doors, the ordinary future that never got the chance to arrive. His parents carry that absence with them, and while they wait for the legal process to fully resolve, they have refused to let grief become only stillness. They have turned it into action. They advocated for clearer, more consistent hunting regulations across Pennsylvania's state parks, not to take away rights, but to establish boundaries where none clearly existed. Because in their view, what happened to Jason? To them, it was not about opposition to hunting. It is about visibility, clarity, and preventing another irreversible mistake made in confusion, distance, or assumption. The bench is their answer to that contradiction. It serves two purposes: to keep Jason present and to make others visible. It does not stand out loudly. It doesn't need to. It belongs there in a way that feels almost permanent, as if the shoreline itself has accepted it. People pass it slowly when they walk the trail, some stopping without fully knowing why, drawn to it before they even read the name. It is not just a place to sit. It is a place that holds attention differently, quietly, insistently, like memory made physical. When the bench was dedicated, dozens gathered along the shoreline. Boats drifted across the lake in quiet formation, forming a slow-moving tribute on the water. From their speakers came "Nothing Else Matters" by Metallica, one of Jason's favorite songs, carrying across the lake in a moment that felt both heavy and strangely whole. The support did not end there. It grew into something larger, something sustained. A foundation in Jason's name now gives back to the community he was a part of, supporting students at Upper Bucks Technical School, funding grants, organizing blood drives, and placing instruments into the hands of children who might not otherwise have access to them. His life in that way continued outward. That is how they keep him here, not just in memory, something fixed, distant, sealed in the past, but in motion, something still unfolding, still reaching outward, still changing lives he never got to meet. Because even now, the lake still holds both truths at once: the beauty of its sunsets and the silence that once followed a single sound across the water. The last sunset was Jason's, not in metaphor, not in hindsight, but in the simple fact there would never be another one for him. He stood at the edge of Lake Nockamixon as the sky turned gold and the warm hues spread across the water, unaware he was watching the world become memory. It did not feel final. That is the cruelest part. It was ordinary in every way that mattered. Light fading, wind moving, time doing what it always does. And then it was gone. The sun still rises over that lake. It still lowers itself into the horizon each evening, without hesitation, painting the same colors across the water as it always has. But Jason is no longer part of that cycle. He never saw another sunset. Kenneth Troy Heller will never see those same sunsets from anywhere beyond the walls, where his life now continues in fixed light and measured days, separated from the world he left behind by a distance that does not change. At Lake Nockamixon, the lake keeps moving through its seasons. The sky keeps burning and fading. The world continues exactly as it always has, untouched by what it lost. And every evening since, when the light touches the water just right, and in that silence, the meaning of everything that came after begins to settle. Because the last sunset wasn't just an ending. It was the moment everything changed. This concludes this week's episode of Departed in Pennsyltucky. I'm your host, Andrea Dudek. Tune in next time for more true crime talk without the Valley Girl squawk.